Something's out here. I can feel it. What is a girl doing alone inside a deep forest like this?
The hunter who saved a lost little girl, then his family started dying one by one. He found her alone in the forest. No shoes, no tears, just standing there, staring at him like she had been waiting. And the moment he carried her home, everything he loved began to disappear. Emeka left for the forest before dawn, the way he always did. The dry season had been long, and the animals were moving differently. He needed to reset his traps further in, deeper than he usually went. He moved through the forest with practiced silence, reading the ground the way other men read words on paper. It was around midday when he heard it. Not an animal, not the wind, something small, something human. He stopped walking, held his breath, listened. A child's voice, faint, coming from the direction of the old Iroko tree, the one people in Oguta avoided because the roots were said to twist underground in the shape of a hand reaching upward. Nobody in the village went near that tree. Not farmers, not other hunters, not even the pastor from the white church at the market square would pray in that direction. But Emeka was not easily frightened. He turned toward the sound. And there she was, a girl, maybe 6, maybe 7 years old, standing barefoot in the middle of a clearing that had no business being there. Emeka had walked this forest 1,000 times and never seen that clearing. The girl was wearing a faded orange dress, torn at one shoulder, her hair unplaited and wild. Her skin was dark and smooth. Her eyes, and this is the part that would haunt him later, her eyes were completely dry, not a single tear. She was not crying the way lost children cry. She was simply standing, waiting. "Small girl," Emeka called out softly. "What are you doing here?" She turned to look at him and she smiled. Not a frightened smile, not a relieved smile, something else entirely. Something that, if Emeka had been paying closer attention, might have made him turn around and walk back the way he came. But he was a father. Emeka and his wife Ngozi had 2 children, a 14-year-old son named Chidi, already tall and proud, learning his father's trade, and a 7-year-old daughter named Adaze. He went to her. Her name, she said, was Ifilma. She said her mother's name was Mama Ifilma, which told him nothing because that is what every child calls her mother in Igbo. She did not know the name of her village. She did not know how long she had been in the forest. When he asked her if she was hungry, she shook her head slowly. When he asked her if she was afraid, she looked at him with those calm, dry eyes and said something that did not make sense to him at the time. She said, "I was not lost, I was choosing." Emeka did not know what to do with those words. He was a hunter, not a philosopher. So he picked her up, placed her on his back, and began the walk home. He would find her family in the morning. He would ask around the village. Someone would know a child named Ifelma. That night, Ngozi fed the girl, washed her feet, and gave her Adaze's spare wrapper to sleep in. Adaze was delighted. She had always wanted a sister. The 2 girls whispered and giggled until Ngozi told them to sleep. Emeka sat outside on his wooden stool and smoked his pipe, watching the stars, feeling quietly proud of himself. He had done a good thing today. He was sure of it. He went to bed that night with a clean conscience. He should not have. 3 days passed. No one in Oguta claimed the girl. Emeka went to every compound, every quarter of the village, described her dress, her face, her name. Nobody knew a family with a missing daughter named Ifelma. The market women shook their heads, the elders shrugged. A few people looked at him strangely when he described where he had found her, near the old Iroko tree, but nobody said anything directly. You know how it is in a village. People know things they will not say out loud. On the 4th day, Emeka's dog died. It was an old dog, 15 years, grey around the muzzle, and dogs die. Emeka buried it behind the compound and said a small prayer. He told himself it was just the dog's time. He almost believed it. On the 6th day, Chidi fell sick. Not malaria, not typhoid, something the local nurse at the health post could not name. The boy burned with fever at night and was cold as river water in the morning. He stopped eating. His eyes went glassy. Ngozi held him through 3 nights without sleeping, pressing wet cloths to his forehead, praying in whispers while the oil lamp flickered. Emeka watched his son's chest rise and fall and felt fear for the first time in years. Real fear, the kind that sits in your stomach like a stone. On the 9th day, Ngozi's mother, who lived 1 compound away and had never been sick a day in her 71 years, collapsed while fetching water and did not regain consciousness. The village began to talk. Not loudly, not directly, but Emeka heard things, fragments, whispers that stopped when he walked past, a woman sucking her teeth, a man avoiding his eyes. He started paying attention to what people were not saying. It was old Mama Chibwaike, the oldest woman in Oguta, the one who brewed the local gin and knew every family's secrets, who finally said it to his face. She called him to her doorstep one evening, looked him up and down, looked past him to where little Ifeoma was playing in the yard with her daisy, and then she said it quietly, the way you say something you wished were not true. Emeka, where did you say you found that child? He told her, near the old Inoko tree. Mama Chibwaike closed her eyes. She was quiet for a long time. When she opened them again, they were wet. That child is not lost, she said. That child was placed. Something put it there for someone to find, and now that someone has invited it home. Emeka felt his chest tighten. What are you saying, Mama? She would not say more. She just looked at him with those wet, tired eyes and said, ask the forest what you brought out of it. He went home that night unable to sleep. He lay beside Ngozi and stared at the ceiling and listened to the sound of the house, the crickets outside, the breathing of his children, the soft rustle of the palm fronds on the roof. Normal sounds, familiar sounds, but they felt different now, like something was underneath them, something listening back. He began to watch Ifeoma, and what he saw confused him, because the girl was, by every measure, perfectly normal. She laughed, she played, she helped Ngozi sweep the compound without being asked. She called Emeka uncle, and called Ngozi auntie, and held Adaize's hand when they walked to the borehole. She ate whatever was placed before her. She slept soundly. She was sweet and quiet and helpful. But animals did not like her. The chickens scattered when she came near. A neighbor's cat, a friendly fat thing that let every child in the village carry it, hissed and ran the first time it saw Ifeoma and never came back to that compound again. Emeka's remaining hunting dog, the younger one, whined constantly when Ifeoma was inside and only stopped when she went out. And the plants. This one took Emeka longer to notice, but once he saw it, he could not unsee it. The small garden Ngozi kept by the house, okra, uziza leaves, garden eggs, had been thriving. Ngozi was proud of it. 3 days after Ifeoma arrived, the garden began to wilt. Within a week, every plant in it was dead. No drought, no pests, just dead. And Chidi was getting worse. The boy was 12 kilograms lighter. He could barely sit up. The nurse had referred them to the general hospital in the city, but Emeka had no money for that yet. He was selling everything, his extra traps, his spare machetes, to gather what he needed. And in the middle of all this grief and fear and exhaustion, little Ifeoma would come and sit beside Chidi's mat and hold his hand and sing to him softly. And Chidi would smile. Emeka did not know what to do with that either. 2 weeks after finding Ifelma, Emeka went back to the forest. Not to hunt, to look. He went back to the clearing by the old Iroko tree. He had been thinking about what Mama Chibuike said about the girl being placed. He needed to understand what that meant. He needed to see the place again with clear eyes, sober daylight eyes, not the midday eyes of a man surprised by a child's voice. He found the clearing. And now, in the dry season light, with no child standing in the middle of it, he saw what he had not seen before. There were no footprints leading into the clearing. The soft red earth at the edges of that open space held the impressions of insects, of fallen leaves, of his own boots from 2 weeks ago, still visible. But no child's footprints. None. A 7-year-old girl in bare feet should have left tracks in that earth. Should have. But there was nothing. He stood there for a long time, trying to explain it to himself. Maybe the wind had disturbed the soil. Maybe he was looking in the wrong place. Maybe. But then he looked at the Iroko tree itself, and he saw the markings. Cut into the bark, fresh cuts, not old, maybe weeks old, were symbols he recognized from childhood. His grandmother had shown him them once, warned him about them. Symbols used in certain rituals, not Christian, not Muslim, older than either. The kind of markings that, according to what the old people said, were used to bind something to a purpose, or to bind something to a person. Emeka ran his fingers along the cuts in the bark. He felt the roughness of it, the rawness, and in the center of the markings, there was a shape carved deeper than the rest. It was the outline of a small human figure, a child. His blood went cold. He stepped back from the tree. He looked around the clearing, really looked, the way a hunter looks, not just seeing, but reading. And he noticed something else. Around the perimeter of the clearing, half buried in the leaf litter, were small objects placed at intervals. A kola nut split and dried, a feather, black, a fragment of orange cloth. Orange, the same color as Ifeoma. Emeka did not walk home. He ran. He arrived at his compound breathing hard, sweat-soaked, and went directly to Ifeoma where she sat under the mango tree with Adeaze. He crouched in front of her and looked into those calm, dry eyes. And for the first time, he did not see a lost little girl. He saw something patient, something old, something that had been sent. Ifeoma, he said carefully, who sent you? She tilted her head. Her expression did not change. Uncle, she said softly, you found me. Yes, I found you, but who put me there for me to find? She was quiet for a long moment. The air around them felt thick. Even Adeaze went still, sensing something. Then Ifeoma smiled, and this time Emeka did not mistake it for innocence. The one who owes you, the one you took from. Emeka felt the world shift under him. He stood up slowly. His mind was racing. The one he took from. He was a hunter. He killed animals. That was his work, his inheritance, his livelihood. But that could not be what this meant, could it? He went to Mama Chibuike that same evening and told her everything. The clearing, the footprints that were not there, the markings on the tree, the cloth, the girl's words. Mama Chibuike listened without interrupting. When she finished, she was quiet for a long time. She refilled her cup of kaikai and drank it slowly. Then she looked at him. Did your father ever tell you what happened in the year before you were born? She asked. Emeka shook his head. Mama Chibuike sighed. Your father was a great hunter, greater than you, but he was also a man who wanted more than what the forest offered. One dry season, the worst dry season in 30 years, he made a bargain with the old ones, the ones who live in the deep forest, in the roots of the old trees. He asked for prosperity, for his family to never go hungry, for his son, you, to grow up strong. He paused, and the old ones accepted. But bargains like that are never free. They carry a price that does not always fall on the person who made the bargain. Emeka stared at her. My father never told me any of this. Your father died before he could, and the debt, it waited. 35 years it waited, sleeping in the back of that Iroko tree, until you walked too close to it, until you put your hands on what belongs to them. The girl. The girl is the debt collector, a shell, dressed in orange, placed in your path, meant to be carried home. Every day she stays in your compound, she takes something. The dog, your son's health, your wife's mother. She will keep taking until there is nothing left or until the debt is paid. The silence that followed was the loudest silence of Emeka's life. Finally, he asked, how do I pay it? Mama Chibuike looked at him for a long time before answering, and when she did, her voice was low and serious and sad. You take her back to where you found her, before sunrise, alone, and you lay down at the foot of the Iroko tree everything your father received, every blessing, every year of good health, every harvest, all of it. You confess the debt out loud, and you renounce the bargain on behalf of your father's name. Emeka felt the ground sway beneath him. And if I do that, what happens to my family's blessings, the health my father bought, if I renounce the bargain? You will live an ordinary life. No great luck, no special protection, but your son will recover, your family will live. Emeka closed his eyes. An ordinary life. He thought about Chidi lying on that mat, burning and freezing. He thought about Ngozi's mother, silent in a hospital bed. He thought about Adeaze, laughing and innocent, holding Ifeoma's hand. He opened his eyes. Tell me exactly what to say. He did not tell Ngozi where he was going. He woke at 4 a.m, the deepest, darkest hour, when even the night birds were silent. He dressed slowly. He took nothing with him except his father's old hunting knife, the one he had inherited, the one he never used because it felt too sacred. He went to the room where Ifeoma slept beside Adeaze.
They walked through the village in silence. No one saw them. No dog barked. Even the night felt hushed, like it was holding its breath. They entered the forest. The path to the Iroko tree was dark. The canopy was thick, and the moon barely reached the ground. But Emeka did not lose his way. He had walked this forest in the dark 100 times, and now it felt like the forest itself was helping him, parting slightly, opening just enough space for him to move. They reached the clearing. And here is what Emeka saw that he would never tell anyone, not even Ngozi, for the rest of his life. The clearing was lit, not by moonlight, not by firefly, by something underneath the earth, a faint green-white glow pressing up through the soil, as if something ancient buried there was breathing. The Iroko tree stood at the center of it, enormous and still. And the markings on its bark, they were glowing too. Emeka stood at the edge of the clearing. He felt the fear move through him like a wave, from his feet to the top of his skull. But he had promised himself he would not run. His son was sick. His family was crumbling. A man who runs from his father's debt only passes it to his children. He stepped into the clearing. Ifeoma let go of his hand and walked to the base of the Iroko tree. She sat down against it, her back to the bark, her legs folded, and she closed her eyes, just like that, like she was going to sleep. Emeka stood before the tree and spoke. He said his father's name, Okafor Emmanuel Okafor, out loud in the dark. He said the bargain his father had made, repeating what Mama Chibuke had told him. He spoke into the quiet of the forest, into the breathing of the old Iroko, and he said the words of renunciation that Mama Chibuke had taught him. He renounced the protection, the special harvest, the good fortune bought with a debt his father never cleared. He laid his father's old knife at the base of the tree as an offering, the most valuable thing he owned, the last object that connected him to his father's hunting legacy. Then he said, "The debt of Okafor Emmanuel is cleared. His son stands here to clear it. Take back what was lent and release what you have taken." The glow in the earth pulsed once, bright and deep. Then it went out. The clearing was just a clearing, dark, ordinary. The markings on the back were gone, just smooth old wood. And Ifeoma opened her eyes. She looked at Emeka, and this time, for the first time, her eyes were wet, real tears, the tears of an actual child, confused and frightened and cold in the middle of the night. "Uncle, where am I? I am afraid." Emeka stared at her. Something had changed. He could feel it, the way you feel a change in air pressure before rain. The girl in front of him was just a girl now. Whatever she had been carrying was gone. Whatever she had been, vessel, messenger, debt collector, it had left her, and what remained was a small, confused, frightened child in a torn orange dress. He picked her up and held him the way he held a daisy, and she clung to him and shook. He carried her home. Chidi began recovering the next morning. The fever broke clean and sudden, like a switch had been thrown somewhere. Within 2 days, he was sitting up and demanding eba. Ngozi's mother regained consciousness on the 3rd day, confused but alive. The nurse at the health post could not explain either recovery. She said sometimes the body does things medicine cannot account for. But Emeka knew. As for Ifeoma, a woman came to the village 11 days later, young, thin, frantic for searching. She had been going from village to village for nearly 2 weeks, looking for her daughter who had wandered away from a family outing near the forest reserve 2 states over. Nobody could explain how a child that young had traveled that far. Nobody tried to. The mother held Ifeoma and wept in the middle of the compound. Ifeoma held her back and wept too. Real tears, real reunion. Emeka watched from his doorway and said nothing. Ngozi came to stand beside him and took his hand. "You look like a man who has put down something heavy," she said. He looked at her, at their compound, at Chidi sitting in the yard pretending to be stronger than he was, at Adeze running circles around the visiting woman's legs. "I have," he said. That night, for the first time in weeks, Emeka slept through the dark without waking. No forest sound, no strange glows watching him from a corner of a room, just sleep. Ordinary, undisturbed, human sleep. And in the morning, he woke up and went back to the forest, the way his father had taught him. He did not have his father's knife anymore. He did not have the family's old luck or the protection that had been bought on his behalf before he was born. He had only what he had made himself. His own skill, his own knowledge, his own hands. He told himself that was enough. He told himself every morning after that for the rest of his life. And most mornings he believed it. But here is the part that Emeka never told. The part he kept buried, the way the Iroko tree keeps its oldest roots buried, deep, silent, and permanent. On the night he returned from the clearing, before Ngozi woke, he sat outside in the dark for 1 hour, just sat, and in that hour he turned over Mama Chiwaike's words. "The one you took from," that is what Ifeoma had said. Not the bargain your father made, not the debt your father owed, the one you took from. What had his father taken? Mama Chiwaike had said prosperity, health, protection, things given in exchange for a promise. But you do not describe a gift as something taken from you.
You describe something taken from you when it was taken without permission, when it was stolen. Emeka sat with that in the dark and wondered what his father really did in that forest 35 years ago. He would never know the full truth. His father was gone, the debt was cleared, the bargain was renounced, but the question stayed with him. Because in Oguta they say, the forest never forgets. You may settle your debt, but the forest will always remember that the debt existed, and it will always remember the name of the man who made it. Okafo, that was the name. Emeka's name, his son Chidi's name, his daughter Adaize's name. The debt was paid, the ledger was closed, but the name was written in the bark of an old tree in the middle of a forest that had been there before the village, before the road, before the church, before anything that calls itself civilization. And it would be there long after. Emeka did not tell Ngozi this. He did not tell Chidi. He did not tell Adaize. He just held them a little tighter from that day forward, loved them a little louder, wasted not one sunrise, not one evening meal, not one moment of his children's laughter. Some prices are not paid by the one who sets them. Some debts travel through blood. Some bargains reach forward into futures the one who made them will never live to see. And the only protection stronger than any deal made in a dark forest is this: love your people so fiercely, so completely, so without condition, that whatever comes for them, whatever ancient claim tries to reach through time and blood and root, finds nothing to take hold of, because everything is already given away, already spent, already poured into the people you love. That is what Emeka the hunter learned, and that is what he carried for the rest of his life. Not his father's knife, not his father's luck, not his father's bargain, just the knowing, the ordinary, irreplaceable, unbreakable knowing of what matters. You just watch the man walk into the dark to settle a debt that was not his to settle, and he did it for his son, for his wife, for a daughter who leaves flowers on the doorstep. If that moved something in you, if this story got under your skin the way the best stories do, then you belong here. Subscribe to this channel. Every story we tell is built for people who want more than just entertainment, people who want to feel something real. Hit that subscribe button, hit the bell, and stay close. There are more stories coming. Stories from the roots, stories that remember. We will see you in the next one.